Welcome to Cooperative AI Notes. This is our very first deep dive, and we're really excited to get started.
Me too.
If you're thinking about, how we actually build AI systems that can cooperate, that can work together safely, well, you're definitely in the right place.
Absolutely.
We're jumping straight into some really foundational stuff today from game theory and social choice. These are like the essential building blocks if you're serious about AI safety.
Exactly. Think of this as getting you up to speed on the core knowledge fast. We've looked at a bunch of materials, YouTube videos from folks like William Spaniel, Vincent Knight, Game Theory Online.
Oh yeah, great stuff there.
The Stanford Encyclopedia entry on social choice theory, which is super comprehensive. Eric Maskin on mechanism design, even a bit on evolutionary game theory.
Right. And our mission today is basically to unpack these concepts: Nash equilibrium, the prisoner's dilemma, social welfare functions, Pareto optimality, even how we represent these games. They might sound a bit abstract at first, but trust us, they're incredibly relevant for AI. And we'll try to make it clear and hopefully show you some surprising connections to AI safety.
Yeah, we're not just defining terms. We want to highlight why they matter so much, often in ways you might not expect, especially for building safe, cooperative AI systems.
Okay, so let's kick things off with Nash equilibrium. People often describe it as this sort of stable state in a game, right?
Exactly. It's like a situation where everyone's doing the best they can, given what everyone else is doing.
So no one looks at their strategy and thinks, I should change this, assuming everyone else stays put.
Precisely. Because changing alone would just make them worse off. It's, self-policing in a way.
But things get a bit more complicated or maybe interesting when we talk about mixed strategies.
Right. So instead of just picking one action, like always cooperating or always defecting a player, might randomize. They might say, cooperate 70% of the time and defect 30%.
Okay. And how does that affect this Nash equilibrium idea?
Well, the MixedNash video we looked at had a really clear point about the classic prisoner's dilemma. It says there's only one Nash equilibrium there, and that's when both players choose their dominant strategy, which is to defect.
Acting in their own self-interest, yeah.
Exactly. And because those are strictly dominant strategies, it actually means there are no mixed Nash equilibria in that specific game. You don't gain anything by randomizing defect.
Got it. But in other games, mixed strategies can be part of an equilibrium.
Oh, absolutely. And understanding strategies, whether pure or mixed, is key to just defining games, like the Defining Games video showed. Even evolutionary game theory talks about mixed strategies in the context of stable population behaviors.
So the possibility of players randomizing their moves in more complex games, that must make predicting the outcome harder, right? It adds uncertainty.
It definitely can. It changes the stability. Think about that bargaining 101 example with Albert and Barbara.
Oh, and negotiating over the $100?
Yeah. Now, they were using pure strategies, specific offers. But Albert's decision about what offer to make depends heavily on his guess about Barbara's options, her alternatives. There's a probabilistic element there.
Okay. Like, what's the chance she'll accept this offer versus that offer?
Exactly. That kind of thinking, weighing probabilities, even when not explicitly randomizing your own move, hints at the complexity mixed strategies introduce. It forces you to consider uncertainty.
Okay, so Nash equilibrium gives us that stable point. But mixed strategies can definitely shake things up in many scenarios, especially for AI. Good. Let's tackle the big one, the prisoner's dilemma.
Yes, the classic. It's such a powerful illustration of a core problem.
You have two players, maybe suspects in a crime, and they'd both be better off if they just cooperated, stayed silent.
Right. But each one, individually, has a really strong incentive to defect, to betray the other one.
And because of that incentive, they often end up in a place where both are worse off than if they had just cooperated.
Precisely. And the key, going back to Nash equilibrium, is that mutual defection is the equilibrium. The MixedNash video really hammered this home too.
Yeah, explain that again. Why is defecting the rational choice for both?
Well, think from one prisoner's perspective. If the other prisoner stays silent, cooperates, you're better off defecting because you go free.
Okay.
If the other prisoner defects, you're still better off defecting yourself because you get a reduced sentence compared to staying silent while they betray you.
Right. So no matter what the other person does, Defecting seems like the better option for you.
Exactly. So assuming rationality and self-interest both defect, even though mutual cooperation would give them both a better outcome than mutual defection, it shows why cooperation is inherently unstable in that setup.
And it's not just a hypothetical game, right? You mentioned evolutionary game theory.
Oh, totally. That chapter we looked at was fascinating. It shows the same dynamic playing out all over nature.
Like where?
Think about beetles competing, trees growing tall, trying to get more sunlight than their neighbors.
Right. Even if they all stayed shorter, they'd save energy. But one tall tree gets an advantage.
Exactly. Plant root systems competing for water, even viruses competing within a host. The tendency is often towards strategies that resemble defecting, grabbing resources now, even if it harms the collective long term.
So evolution can favor strategies that mirror the Nash equilibrium of defection, even if cooperation would technically be better overall for the species or group.
Yeah, the evolutionarily stable strategy often aligns with that individual incentive to defect. It's a really fundamental tension.
Wow. Okay, so the prisoner's dilemma really highlights how hard cooperation can be. How do we then think about, the goodness of different outcomes for everyone involved? That leads us to social welfare functions, right?
Exactly. A social welfare function is basically a tool, a mathematical way to try and combine everyone's individual preferences or well-being into one overall measure for the whole group or society.
Like trying to answer, how good is this state of affairs considering everyone?
Pretty much. And there are different ways to do it. That video on utilitarian, Rawlsian, and weighted functions laid out some key types.
Right. Utilitarianism is about maximizing the total happiness or utility summed across everyone.
Yeah, the greatest good for the greatest number, essentially. Add up everyone's well-being score.
Okay. And Rawlsian, that was different.
Very different ethical basis. The Rawlsian approach says we should judge a society by how well its worst-off members are doing. The goal is to maximize the minimum level of well-being.
Lifting the floor, so to speak.
Precisely. And then you also have weighted functions, where maybe some people's well-being counts more than others for various reasons.
Now, the Stanford Encyclopedia article brought up a really important point about how we measure well-being in the first place. And can we even compare it between people?
That's the million-dollar question, really. Can we just rank things, ordinal? Can we measure the intensity of preferences, cardinal? Can we meaningfully say person A is happier than person B, interpersonal comparability?
And the assumptions you make there drastically change what kind of social welfare analysis you can even do.
Absolutely. If you assume you can only rank preferences and can't compare between people, constructing a robust social welfare function gets incredibly difficult, as Arrow's theorem famously showed.
Okay, so that's complicated. But there's another way to evaluate outcomes, focusing on efficiency, using Pareto concepts.
Yes, exactly. Pareto optimality and Pareto improvement offer a way to talk about efficiency, often without needing those tricky interpersonal comparisons of welfare.
So what's Pareto optimal?
An outcome is Pareto optimal if there's no way to make at least one person better off without making someone else worse off.
Okay, so you've squeezed out all the win-win potential. Any further change requires a trade-off.
You got it. It's a state of efficiency in that sense. No free lunch improvements left.
And a Pareto improvement.
That's simply a change from one state to another where at least one person gains something and nobody loses anything.
Okay. That sounds like something everyone should agree to, in theory.
In theory, yes, it's an unambiguous improvement. And this ties into efficient allocation, like in Maskin's work on mechanism design. When allocating something like radio spectrum, the goal is often to get it to the company that values it most, reaching a state where no further trades could make someone better off without harming another, a Pareto optimal allocation.
Gotcha. So efficiency is key. Now, to analyze all these situations, the dilemmas, the equilibria we need to represent the games formally. You mentioned normal form and extensive form.
Right. Two main ways. The Defining Games video showed the normal form pretty clearly. Think of it as a matrix, a table.
Okay.
It lists the players, all their possible strategies or actions, and then the payoffs for every combination of choices. We usually think of it as simultaneous moves, although a strategy can encode sequential actions planned in advance.
Like that TCP back-off game example. The matrix showed the payoffs depending on whether both computers back off. Neither does or just one does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very concise for games where timing isn't the main focus, or moves are effectively simultaneous.
But then there's extensive form.
Extensive form is different. It explicitly maps out the sequence of moves. Think of a game tree.
Like Brenges.
Yeah, exactly. It shows who moves when, what information they have when they move, and the payoffs at the very end of each possible sequence of play. It captures the timing and information flow.
Which seems crucial for lots of real-world interactions,
Huh.
especially with AI agents acting over time.
Absolutely essential. While our sources didn't go super deep into the mechanics of drawing them, the concept is vital. Even that bargaining game tree for Albert and Barbara,
Uh-huh.
that's an extensive form representation. It showed Albert's offer, then Barbara's decision node, accept, reject. It captures the back and forth.
So normal form is like a snapshot. Extensive form is like a movie script showing the sequence.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah. Choosing the right one depends on what aspects of the strategic interaction you need to capture, especially for AI that makes decisions sequentially.
Okay, let's pull this all together. Why is mastering these game theory basics so incredibly important for people building safe AI systems?
Well, think about it. Understanding Nash equilibrium helps you predict, or at least analyze, how multiple AI agents might interact, or how an AI might interact with humans. Will they reach a stable state? What will it look like?
And the prisoner's dilemma is like a giant warning sign.
Huge warning sign. It shows that even if cooperation is the goal, the underlying incentives might push rational agents towards selfish behavior that harms everyone. We need AI designs that can overcome that.
So we need to structure interactions or maybe even the AI's reward functions to avoid those kinds of traps.
Definitely. And that's where social welfare functions and Pareto concepts come in again. They give us a language and framework to evaluate AI behavior. Is the AI contributing to overall good? Is it making things better without hurting others? Pareto improvements.
We need ways to define and measure desirable outcomes for multi-agent AI systems.
Exactly. And choosing the right game representation, normal or extensive form, is critical for modeling these interactions accurately, especially as AI becomes more autonomous and engages in complex, drawn-out interactions. Get the model wrong, and your predictions or safety analyses could be way off.
So it really sounds like these concepts, Nash equilibrium, mixed strategies, the prisoner's dilemma trap, social welfare, Pareto efficiency, and game forms, are absolutely fundamental tools.
Bedrock concepts. They're not just theory, they're essential for thinking clearly about the challenges and opportunities in designing AI that can cooperate safely and effectively.
So to wrap up, we've touched on these core ideas and why they're critical for anyone interested in AI safety. Understanding stability, cooperation challenges, evaluating outcomes, and modeling interactions is key.
Definitely.
And here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. As these AI systems get smarter and more interconnected, how do we consciously design their interactions, their environments, maybe even their core objectives, so they naturally steer away from those harmful prisoner's dilemma outcomes?
Yeah, how do we build systems that reliably find outcomes aligned with what we as a society actually want, pushing towards those Pareto improvements and genuinely beneficial equilibria?
That's the big challenge, isn't it?
It really is. We hope this discussion has given you some useful frameworks for thinking about it. We encourage you to explore these ideas further, and we'll definitely be diving into more related topics in future sessions.